We've went over one way to place an article or some kind of grouping of text into a publication. Let's go over another way to actually create columns. I'm going to go up to Advanced and then Reset Advanced, so we have our default panels over here, and I have pages right there. So I'm going to navigate. This is going to be a lookbook, so we don't want too much text. We're going to have a lot of photos and whatnot, but I'm going to navigate to 8 and 9. I'm just going to double click there to navigate to pages 8 and 9 here. And let's go to File, Place, and let's place the same article from earlier in the InDesign support files, lookbook, text, Wintercrest Ski Resort. Click Open. And instead of using columns, I'm just going to click and drag this story out like that. And then there's the entire story. Now we can actually add columns a different way. Instead of just placing them along a column guide, we can go to Object and then Text Frame Options here. And there are a couple options. For example, where it says columns number, that doesn't mean column guides on the page, it's actually just columns in this text frame. So let's bring that up to 4 as well. And the gutter is just a spacing in between columns, and that's fine. We can also tell it to align to the top, which is the default, or the middle. I'll click preview to show what it will look like, or we can align it to the bottom as well. So top is the default. I'll bring this back to one column so I'll show you what I mean. Instead of top, there's center, and then bottom, and then Justify kind of stretches it out vertically instead of horizontally. So let's make this 4 columns. We can also add inset spacing. What that means is if I click up, you'll see that we have a little bit of spacing from the edge like that, and we can of course uncheck this if we want to adjust only certain parts of that spacing. For example, the left and the right we can adjust, or keep them all consistent. So that keeps the gutter the same in the middle there, but it adds a little bit of spacing around the edges. If we go up to columns where it says Fix Number and just click Fix Width, we can adjust some settings for the width. For example, if I just set that to 2 inches and click OK, now if I click and drag, it won't let me stretch those columns out, it just adds more columns, right? So another way to bring up that text frames option is to right click on it somewhere and go to Text Frame Options. You can also set it to flexible width, and then we have a range. So if I increase this a bit, let's just say 2 inches to 3 inches, that's the range for this. So if I click and drag, up at the top, if we have our window maximized enough, we have some of these same options here. You see the number of columns right there, 4, and the width of the gutter in between the columns. Then we have unbalanced columns, or balanced. If I click balance, you see it tries to align it. And there's also aligning it to the top, align it to the center. So if I balanced it and align it to the center, pretty good job of aligning it. And vertically justifies just tries to fill up that space. So those are some of the same options from earlier. So the default is aligned to the top. You can also click Fit Frame to Content here, just like we could fit frame to a photo earlier in the course. If I click that, it'll actually resize this overall frame. If I click and go back to the text frame options again, we don't need to adjust the baseline options in this example. And what if we want to add text to this text frame, but we keep getting the overset text error because there's not any more room in there? We can actually fix that automatically without having to thread the text into another text frame or resizing it manually like that. We can actually just go back to the text frame options and then go to auto size, and right here we can set it so that this text frame will actually get taller as we type and add more content or add inline images, for example, or it can get wider, or it can get taller and wider, and it can also get taller and wider but keep those same width to height proportions. So I'll show you the height only, for example. If I click OK there, and then let's just say I add some text right here, press enter, and as I press enter, see the text frame actually gets taller. So it doesn't have the error at the bottom where it has overset text. So that's for if we have text to still place into a text frame and we don't want to have to keep resizing it manually, we can have it resize automatically with the auto size option in the text frame options. We can of course add a background color to this. If I just added something like that. Ideally we add shapes behind a text frame instead of just embedding it into the text frame itself, but this actually has some spacing around it because we added that in the text frame options. I'm going to undo that, but just to show how we can add color quickly to a text frame background. If we added color to these though, it is right along the edge. So that's not best practices. As far as the color being right on the edge there, we would want to actually draw a shape or like a rectangle behind it if we wanted to add some kind of background color. One more tip when we're placing text, if you go to File, Place, and then select the story here, and normally if I just click into a column here or a frame, it will only flow in that column or whatever shape we've clicked on. What if we wanted it to flow throughout these 4 columns though? Well, we can hold Shift and then it changes the cursor there. We can see I click and let go, and now it will keep threading. So if we have, for example, a Word document that had 25 pages, we can hold Shift and click and it will thread through 25 pages. All right, in the next lesson, we'll go over spanning and splitting text to further customize our text frames.